Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast shorts. There's no co-host on these shorts episodes. These are now around 2 to 4 minute, sometimes as long as 6 to 10 minute observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 2 to 4 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book your coworker won't stop raving about because it quote-unquote changed their life, but you can't see any difference in their leadership behavior. So how good could that author be? The reason the Bible still sells 80 million plus copies a year in America from just one major American book publisher isn't because Americans are just reflexively Christian. It's not even because cultural Christianity still rules many of the informal and formal relationships of many Americans. It's not because the Bible is great literature. It is. That's why we read, examine, and talk about it insistently on this podcast. Or that the Bible is just the quote-unquote default book in many Americans' homes, whether they have actually read it or not. It's not even because the churches buy Bibles, although many of them do. Many of them do. It isn't because of that. The reason the Bible, that hoary old book that continues to resist the behavioral algorithm that runs much of social media and our internet, is that the Bible, both the Old and the New Testament together, describes the actual structure of reality itself. Now, for those of you who maybe don't understand this or don't really believe in this, I have to be very clear here. I don't mean that the Bible describes the actual structure of reality in a scientific or purely atheistically rational way. It can't, right? Although increasingly we are discovering that the Bible has at least something to add to those material explanations of material reality as well. No, the Bible describes the relationships between all elements in reality, including material and immaterial ones. It orders those relationships and then lays down rules for that reality, with the consequences of not following those rules very clearly. For those with eyes to see and ears to hear, the Bible provides clarity of explanation of all the sins, failures, mistakes, doubts, trials, and travails of all people everywhere, great and elite, all the way down to the small and the common. For those who are blind, the words of the Bible provide sight. And for those who are in rebellion against reality, all aspects of reality, from the relationships between people to the material actions that impact the natural world, the Bible provides unheeded warnings about what the consequences are of wallowing in such rebellion. It turns out that Newton's law of equal and opposite reaction has been scribed into reality long before God created Newton. But we live in an era where people in the West in general, and in America in particular, leaders and commoners alike, are in active rebellion against reality itself. Our minuscule technological knowledge has managed to slice a sliver from the great block of reality, and collectively we cock and crow in our pride, vanity, and in our puffed up lusts. We demand, like small children, that reality conform to us because we have created fragile technologies that barely provide for our own enormous appetites. And of course, we demand that our leaders, our systems, and our processes continue to perform the work of pushing back reality itself in an endless upward heading right side J curve to the heavens, so that we may finally be able to shake the hand of the ultimate creator himself, remove him from the throne, and sit there. Except the forces opposing such hubris have the reality of the Bible behind them. And not only that, they have the understanding that taking the Bible and its descriptions of the very fabric of reality seriously means committing to actions that will have a very specific, yet very unknowable and indecipherable outcome. A biblical understanding of leadership, a biblical understanding of action in leadership, is not about spouting psalms, chapters, proverbs, or even aphorisms. It is instead about understanding that true leadership requires being willing to sacrifice everything that is personal, from the ego that you have as a leader, to the toys you get for being a leader, to the money and the power you acquire for being a leader, in order to perish, metaphorically and literally, on the altar of how reality itself is structured. Tommy Lee Jones, portraying a West Texas sheriff in the Coen brothers' 2008 film No Country for Old Men, intones, quote, "I always knew you had to be willing to die to do this job," close quote. 80 plus million copies from just one publisher alone in the United States sold of the Bible agree. And well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast today. And now that you've made it this far, you should subscribe to the audio version of this show on all the major podcast players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.